It's one of the biggest stories in Boston right now. A Swampscott woman's mysterious disappearance has sparked a massive search and continuous coverage. But some media outlets are choosing not to report a key piece of information. WGBH News reporter Adam Riley has more.
25-year-old Jamie Mendez hasn't been heard from since last Thursday, when she apparently called friends to say she was with a man who made her uncomfortable.
Said, listen, I'm on this street, I'm with this guy, he's making me really nervous, I want to get out of here. And that's the last anyone heard from her.
For days, the media agreed that one detail of the man's past was newsworthy.
Sex offender.
Registered sex offender.
Level 3 sex offender.
Still, most outlets chose not to reveal the man's identity.
We're not identifying him tonight because he hasn't been charged with a crime.
But Fox 25 did, identifying the man as Jason Fleury and delving into his criminal history.
He was 18 years old, living in Virginia. According to his mother, Fleury had sex with his then-girlfriend's 13-year-old sister.
Now WCVB is following suit.
5 Investigates has learned Fleury has as many as 21 different criminal cases against him in Lynn Court.
And Fleury is talking, telling the Lynn Item newspaper he didn't harm Mendez. One thing hasn't changed. Police still aren't calling Fleury a suspect.
I don't see what that has to do with it. I'm curious what WBZ's policy is on this. My theory is that if he weren't a level 3 sex offender, they would name him. Because last week, when they were looking for, there was a body found somewhere down around Bridgewater, and they were looking for the husband, they named him, or the boyfriend, I guess it was, because they were looking for him. They're looking for this guy. He doesn't have to be a suspect to have somebody's name out there. So it seems to me that, oh, well, if you say he's a sex offender, the next logical conclusion is he's guilty, so we better not name him.
I don't know what our policy is. My guess is it's evaluated on a case-by-case basis, and I think that's the right way to go about it. I would just say about this 2 words, Richard Jewell, the accused Atlanta Olympic Park bomber, who it turned out didn't do it.
Yeah, but they charged him.
Right, but his name was out there before he was even charged, a long time. Yeah. And he was cleared, and he successfully won a settlement. I don't believe the case ever went to trial, but you have to be careful, because while it may be that this individual's name surfaced in legitimate ways as the story evolved, you really have to be careful. And I think news organizations should be careful about, here's a terrible crime that's been committed, people are saying sex offender, here's the name of the person, when the police haven't charged or arrested anyone.
But when you're looking for somebody.
But the other piece is that a lot of those stories, the level of interest in the sex offender came from the family. It wasn't coming from the police. If the police were saying, we're interested in this person and pursuing them, that was the message that was going out, that might be one thing. I do think, I want to give credit to Cyrus Moulton at the Lynn Item, who actually tracked this guy down and did an interview with him yesterday. He, of course, said that he had nothing to do with it and said it was someone else, a heroin dealer who he thought would be the chief suspect. I think that if he's not someone who has been named as a person of interest specifically by the police, then I think it's reasonable for a news organization to be cautious and to say, we're going to hold back. I think it's a reasonable choice. But now, of course, that he's come forward and said, identified, talked to a reporter, I think it's certainly fair game.
I always like to, I prefer news organizations to err on the side of not naming. This whole, we've talked on this panel before, this whole issue about person of interest. That's not a person charged, but in the gray area, that person's name gets thrown out there. So in the end, it's as though they've been charged. So I think anytime you can step back and take a moment, I mean, I don't know why you have to put the man's name out there right now. They're looking for him, they find him, then
they might, help find him, for one thing.
Well, I mean, they have some, obviously, to Josh's point, there's some things that are preventing, there's a reason the police are looking and saying what they're saying at this moment.
The reporter found him.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of mystified by the whole thing, because I think the idea of not naming people who haven't been charged is a perfectly defensible practice, but we don't see it very often.
Exactly.
Yeah, usually
it's rarely done. And I don't see why the fact that this person is a level 3 sex offender would lead the media to say, oh, we're not going to name him. It's not clear to me why this time we're not going to name him, whereas 95% of the time we do.
That's what I'm getting at.